Trump's biggest nightmare is here. India is ditching the US dollar and switching to China's yuan. This seismic move could shatter decades of American financial dominance, reshape global power, and rewrite the rules of trade. Whatever happens next will change the world economy forever. Stay tuned. Chapter 1. The dollar under pressure. For decades, the US dollar has ruled the world of trade. Every major commodity, from oil to gold to wheat, every big international deal, every contract, all hinged on the greenback. The dollar was the undisputed king, the glue holding together the vast network of global commerce. But now cracks are forming in this empire. The surprising player shaking things up? India is the world's third largest economy. Once a staunch supporter of dollar-based trade, India is quietly exploring alternatives. Its growing economic ties with China, Russia, and the BRICS alliance are rewriting the rules on how trade is conducted. Think about it. India imports over $24 billion worth of diamonds alone, and billions more every year in electronics, pharmaceuticals, and energy. These are massive numbers. Typically, these deals happen in US dollars, locking India into the American-dominated trade system. But now, India is shifting parts of these dealings to alternative currencies, especially China's yuan. This shift is more than just a trade tactic. It's a signal that the dollar's dominance is being challenged in one of the fastest-growing regions on the planet. India's economy is booming. It is projected to be a $5 trillion giant soon. And if the largest democracy starts cutting loose from the dollar, the impact will ripple across the global economy. Chapter 2. Why India matters. So why is India such a big deal in this story? Because India is much more than just a buyer or seller. It's a global powerhouse, and its role reaches far beyond simple trade. Firstly, India produces 20% of the world's generic drugs. That means 1 out of every 5 generic medicines in the world comes from India. These drugs power US hospitals with life-saving medicine, everything from insulin for diabetics to antibiotics and critical chemotherapy treatments. The American healthcare system depends heavily on this supply. Think what would happen if that supply were suddenly disrupted. Insulin, antibiotics, and chemotherapy aren't luxury items. They're essential. And if new tariffs or trade restrictions drive up prices, these life-saving medicines could become unaffordable for millions of Americans overnight. But it's not just medicine. India is also a major exporter of IT services, electronics, and textiles. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in global trade that keep countless businesses running and shelves stocked in stores around the world. Losing India's dollar-denominated trade is more than a symbolic setback. It threatens supply chains on a massive scale, threatens to stoke inflation, and puts American healthcare security at risk. The US can't quickly replace India's pharmaceutical supply. Setting up new factories stateside would take years and billions of dollars. So what happens if India turns away from the dollar and toward alternatives? It's not just an economic issue, it's a potential humanitarian crisis in the making. Chapter 3. BRICS and the Yuan strategy. Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. India isn't acting alone. It's part of the BRICS alliance. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This group started as a trade network, but has rapidly evolved into something much more strategic, a parallel financial system. And at the center of this system sits China's yuan, steadily challenging the dominance of the US dollar. Here's an eye-opening fact. Over the last 5 years, the yuan's share of global foreign exchange reserves has jumped from about 1% to roughly 8%. That might sound small, but in global finance, that's a massive leap. BRICS countries are actively pushing dollar alternatives for settling trades in energy, technology, and raw materials. India's pivot to the yuan is strategic. It's not just about saving money. It's a way for India to protect itself from the whims of sanctions, tariffs, and geopolitical pressure imposed by the United States. By reducing reliance on the dollar, India is saying loud and clear, we will not be hostage to foreign policies that threaten our interests. Chapter 4. Trump's tariff tactics. This brings us to Donald Trump and his trade tactics. Trump's approach was blunt pressure through tariffs. Proposals emerged to slap heavy tariffs up to 50% on Indian goods ranging from electronics to diamonds. Now consider this. India exports $24 billion worth of diamonds to the US every year. Cutting off or taxing those trade flows is huge. Alongside tariffs, Trump demanded that major global chip makers like Taiwan's TSMC and South Korea's Samsung shift production to the US, aiming to squeeze China out of high-tech manufacturing. But here's the irony. Instead of pulling India closer, these moves are pushing it farther away, deeper into China's economic orbit. Take India's cheap Russian oil purchases, for example. While most Western countries cut back due to sanctions, India continued buying Russian oil. Why? To keep domestic fuel prices stable for hundreds of millions of Indians. For them, it was a lifeline, not a political statement. From Washington's perspective, India's relationship with Russia and BRICS was unacceptable, provoking tariff threats and trade pressure. But for India, energy security and affordable fuel come first. Trump's tariffs risked alienating a critical partner and unintentionally nudged India closer to China and Russia. Instead of isolation, India's getting economic alternatives and new alliances, exactly the opposite of what the US intended. Chapter 5: Energy Realignment. Now talk about energy, the lifeblood of every economy and military power. The global energy map is changing fast. Russia, cut off from Western markets by sanctions and trade restrictions, isn't sitting idle. Instead, it's pivoting hard east, selling vast amounts of cheap oil and gas directly to China. The key to this shift: the colossal power of Siberia pipelines are pumping massive volumes of energy straight to Beijing. Why does this matter? Because cheap Russian energy fuels China's factories, lights up its cities, and even powers its military infrastructure. Every barrel of oil and every cubic meter of gas diverted eastward is lost leverage for the United States. This isn't just an economic shift. It's a strategic power play that could last for decades. Energy demand is huge, and whoever controls stable energy supplies controls a major piece of global influence. Think about it. The US used to be able to shape global politics by controlling access to oil and gas. Now, with Russia rewiring its energy routes directly to China at discounted prices, the balance is tipping. This new energy alliance between Moscow and Beijing threatens to redraw the world's power lines for the next 50 years. It's like a giant chessboard, and the US is no longer the one making the first moves. Chapter 6: Allies hedge their bets. And it's not just Russia and China playing a different game. Some of America's closest allies are also starting to hedge their bets. Take Japan, a traditional cornerstone of US strategy in Asia for decades. Japan is now signing big agreements with India, ramping up trade with Brazil, and expanding cooperation with China, especially in fields like green energy and technology. The Bank of Japan, a key player in global finance, is even considering reducing its holdings of US government bonds. That's huge because it signals doubts about the reliability of the dollar and US debt. So, what does all this mean? Japan, while still a close American partner, is increasingly making independent decisions that don't always align with Washington's interests. This shift suggests we're entering a new era. Traditional alliances can no longer be taken for granted. Countries are acting based on their own economic and strategic interests, rather than loyalty alone. Japan's recalibration echoes a broader pattern. Allies around the world are diversifying their partnerships, seeking stability and growth wherever they find it. For the US, this means its influence isn't guaranteed anymore. It must fight to stay relevant in a multipolar world. Chapter 7: The Cost for America. What does this all mean for everyday Americans, for businesses, workers, and consumers? The impact is real and immediate. Prices on shelves are rising. Supply chains tighten. Factories and farms grapple with shortages because crucial materials and drugs become more expensive or harder to come by. What started as an attempt to protect American industries through tariffs and sanctions may be doing the opposite. In fact, it may be accelerating the rise of competitors in Asia, South America, and Africa. As rivals strengthen their trade networks and technological base, the US risks finding itself isolated on multiple fronts: finance, technology, and energy. Think of paying more for your smartphone, your car, or even your medicine, all while American companies struggle to keep up in technological innovation. Trump's aggressive tactics were intended to put America first, but the world keeps moving, and unfortunately, the US risks getting left behind. Chapter 8. India's Choice. India is becoming a game-changer in the global financial arena. Its shift to the Chinese yuan isn't just about trade, it's a strategic masterstroke. By deepening ties with China and the BRICS nations, India is locking in stable trade routes, securing energy supplies, and expanding its political influence in a fast-changing world. This move weakens the US dollar's global dominance and boosts the yuan's reach. What once looked like small trade disagreements have turned into a major reshaping of global finance. India's choice sends a powerful message. America's era of unquestioned economic dominance is ending. The US must rethink its strategies and embrace a multipolar world or risk falling behind. For Trump, India's yuan switch isn't just a challenge, it's a warning of a new world order on the horizon. If you want to stay ahead of the next big shifts in global finance and geopolitics, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.